Thanks again for tuning in to the Multifamily Women's Podcast. Today I have an awesome guest, Stacy Westbay. She is the founder of Revenue Edge, and she is a Multifamily Women's Summit sponsor this year. And Stacy, we are so excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Revenue Edge and the service you provide and kind of some of the clients that you work with and what you do for them.
Sure, perfect. So Revenue Edge is a pricing advisory services. So we essentially partner with clients who use revenue management systems. Regardless of what system they use, we're pretty agnostic when it comes to the system. And we provide the pricing advisory services. So once you implement revenue management, you've got to have someone that oversees the system, is looking at the pricing recommendations, configuring the model to align with whatever the asset strategies and goals are. And so we do all of that on behalf of our clients. So it gives them an alternative to either outsourcing that service to the software provider, or it gives them an alternative to having someone in-house do that for them. Generally, when we started, we kind of anticipated that we would focus on clients with 10,000 units or less, because that was kind of the breaking point where it made sense to have someone full time. So we've got clients as small as 2 communities in their portfolio up to 60 communities in their portfolio. So we've definitely gone over that 10,000 unit threshold with some clients, which has been great. But really just partner with them to provide their pricing advisory services, really try to position ourselves to be an extension of their team, help with training, all of the things revenue management related.
Wow, that's really
Yeah,
amazing. And
yeah.
so, what made you, you're the founder of Revenue Edge, what made you want to get into this business?
I've been in the multifamily business what seems like forever, since 1996. So I've been around for a little while. But before joining Revenue Edge, I worked for an organization that actually sold to Camden. And during our last 2 years at that organization, we did a ton of research on revenue management and rolled out a revenue management platform. And our portfolio was only about 5,000 units at the time. And so we didn't want to outsource that to the software provider, but we also knew that it wasn't large enough to have it in-house. And as the VP of asset management for the company that I was with, we ended up rolling it up underneath my purview. And I loved it. I love the number side of it. I love the strategy side of it. Having been in the business for so long, I was out doing the operations thing for a very long time and then transitioned to asset management. And it was just a good way to marry both of those skill sets. And so when our organization sold to Camden, I had the bright idea that wouldn't it be cool to offer other organizations a similar option if they didn't want to outsource it to the software provider, or they didn't want to carry the payroll burden in-house, or just the responsibilities of keeping up with the software and all of that in-house. Thought it would be really cool to present an idea to other people that they could be able to do that, and figured I would give it a shot and see if it would work. And here we are 12 years later. So
Wow, that's an
yeah.
incredible story. And so, what kind of benefits do your current clients see from working with Revenue Edge?
Think, we're very boutique style, even though we've grown over the last 12 years, we're very hands-on. Our revenue managers have a much smaller capacity as far as the number of communities that they oversee. So that allows them to have a much bigger bandwidth. So not only are we monitoring the software and looking at the configuration and discussing strategy shifts with them and all of those things and incorporating that into the model, we're taking it a step further. We typically have access to their property management system. We help troubleshoot some things. We help them look at operational processes and procedures to see if there's anything that they could maybe streamline or change that would make their revenue management system more effective. So we really just kind of get down into the weeds with them. And I think, with the smaller load that our revenue managers carry, just that accessibility, we are able to answer the phone, set up trainings, just highly accessible to our clients. I think that's probably one of the biggest benefits.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. And
Thanks.
so, I know a lot of females out there who are listening are attending the Women's Summit. Very excited to see you there and have you as a
Yeah.
sponsor this year.
Yes.
So, what advice do you have for women up and coming in this industry who might want to kind of branch out on their own and be a founder?
Oh goodness, that's tough. I would say meet as many people as you can. If there's a certain component, certain part of this industry that you're drawn towards, a certain thing that you want to focus on. Meet as many people as you can that are currently serving in that space, that are currently vendors in that space, suppliers, as well as consumers of whatever that service offering would be, and really try to identify where there is a need, like what's missing. Because like I said, there's software providers provide the services we do. They're out there. It's just we put a little bit different spin on it. So really evaluate what it is that you are passionate about, find people that are currently involved in that space, and then try to find kind of the missing piece and where you can add value.
Great.
And then be prepared for it to take way longer than you thought it would take.
Yes.
Yes, it does
I've
take a
seen a
little
lot
while.
of that out
Yes.
there lately. People are like, just keep your eye on the prize, focus, and don't let that pace deter you from thinking that you're not winning, right? Because
Right. And
sometimes
that's
it
one, I
takes
mean,
three.
most of us in this business are in this business because we are drawn to that constant, ever changing, pace that we have. And so on the business owner side, that is no different. It's
Hmm.
one of the nice things we get to stay engaged with our clients. So still get to kind of shift gears, midday, keep all the excitement there, like you normally do in the multifamily space.
Yep. And it's all about connection. We know that in this industry.
100%. It's a small, big world.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
that's again why we're really excited to have you at the summit this year. What encouraged you to want to sponsor the Women's Summit this year?
We originally purchased a ticket back when COVID hit and didn't have the opportunity to go. And as we've grown, I've just looked for opportunities for us to get a little more involved and meet new people. Again, it's a small, big world. There's a lot of folks out there that I have not had the opportunity to meet. And so this was just an opportunity to do that, something a little different than the normal conferences that are out there. I've also, I've met several women in this industry. I've been in this industry since I was 19 years old, so quite a while. And I've met, women that I worked with at my first organization that I could still pick up the phone and call today. And it's just such an invaluable thing to have. And so continuing to make those connections, foster those relationships, potentially provide that for someone else is just very important.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit more about your journey in multifamily. So I know you said you've played multiple roles. What does that look like, and how has that benefited you now starting your own company and your knowledge of multifamily?
So I actually started part-time leasing when I was an undergrad. And so it was a great job. I could work on the weekends and have the week off. And it was very, very flexible. So I was with JPI way back in the day, the first iteration, and started part-time leasing and grew with that organization. I was there for about 8 years, worked for them in Texas, Arizona, and Colorado. And then within my time at JPI, I grew to be a regional manager. And I was working for JPI out in Arizona, and we terminated a management agreement. And so at that point, I made the decision to go back to grad school. I really wanted to stay in the multifamily space. During my time at JPI, it was very interesting because I saw kind of it shift. We went from being community managers who were planning parties and baking cookies and all the fluffy stuff to really being held responsible for the financial performance of our asset. And I mean, if you think about it, community managers are running 30, 40, $50 million assets. And so I grew to really love the business side of our business. And so when I went to grad school, I knew that I wanted to stay in the multifamily space, but I was kind of ready for a shift from operations. I didn't necessarily wanted to do that piece. So I did an internship with Verde Apartment Communities, which is the organization that sold to Camden, and ended up joining their team as an asset management associate, stayed on board, grew within that position, and then was the VP of asset management when it sold to Camden.
Mm.
And so I think getting to see operations, it was about 8 years of operations and then about 8 years of asset management. I got to work on a lot of development stuff and really got to understand the business from the ground up on both sides. And I
Hmm.
think being able to speak the operations language, the asset management language, understand the development stuff, really understand the business of our industry is what's been very, very helpful. And it's something that we focus with on our team, is just having folks who can speak all of those multiple languages to kind of bridge the gap between all the stakeholders.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
that listening and then learning and then applying. It just is the
Yes.
story I keep hearing over and over again, especially when people are starting their own businesses. They're like, yeah, I just learned, I found my niche and I just moved forward with that. And it seems to be really working for people.
Yeah, and definitely, and listening to some of the stuff they're telling you that they're not even intentionally telling you, right? Just some of the things that you hear kind of behind the scenes, between the lines, things of that nature too.
Yeah. And having experts, in certain fields like yours, I think really helps, people might not necessarily have those team members on staff, right? And so
Right.
having that kind of arm that they can reach out to with your company that actually helps them be able to not have to hire a whole team to do what you do. So that's really exciting for them.
Yeah, and I think it's nice too. I mean, naturally, our industry has a lot of turnover. So if we've got a revenue manager who's partnered with a community and they change community managers one, two, three times over the course of a few years, we've got all of that knowledge, right? So that
Yeah.
knowledge doesn't get lost. We're able to kind of get the new community manager, a new regional manager up to speed. We've got history on the asset. And I think that's really valuable, being able to retain that for the client.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
what are you excited about moving forward with Revenue Edge? What are your goals for the future?
So we're continuing to grow pretty rapidly. Kind of the top two things that we're working on for this year. So given that we don't really have a product that we recommend, right? We were going to help our clients evaluate all of the products that are in the space, determine which one kind of best aligns with how they operate their assets and their operating philosophy overall. We get to touch and feel many different revenue management platforms, which is always really exciting. And
Mhm.
so we've most recently worked with our first Reba client. So Reba being new to the space. So that's been very interesting and exciting to do. And then we are also about to offer a complimentary service that we've kind of had in our back pocket for a little while, but we've moved forward. So we're going to start to do an amenity analysis service for our clients. We talk about amenities a lot. They're
Yes.
hugely impactful to rent. And, there hasn't always been a very easy way to necessarily evaluate those things and analyze that information. And so we've actually partnered with Reba. We're going to use their amenity product, their Reba amenity product,
Great.
and going to start offering that service to our clients. So we're really excited for existing clients to get to utilize that product, but also we want to incorporate it into clients going forward as we set up their revenue management system. Do that as one of our onboarding processes, because if you start with good, clean information, it just better set you up for success in the long run. So really
Yeah.
excited about just kind of having access to a new system, and then also enhancing our service offering.
That's really amazing. And being
Yeah.
able to partner, I always say that when suppliers in our industry come to me and they say things like, what do I do? How do I expand this? Or I'm like, honestly, talk to other people who are doing similar things or have similar problems or might
Right.
have a complementary product to what you're offering that you can partner together and really take it off. So I think
Yeah.
what you're doing is spot on to what you should be doing.
Yeah, it's great advice. And I think, our team has grown. We're kind of in the position where it makes sense to do that right now. So excited to see how we're able to bring that service offering to current clients and then incorporate it in, future implementations.
That's really exciting. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
you've done a lot of work and it's really incredible. I think we don't have female founders on here often yet. So I want to get more of that perspective of really, because I know we all have, a lot of us have it in us. We're like, what would it
Mhm.
look like if I went out on my own and I did something and I just dipped my toe in? Like, what does that look like? So was that a hard decision to make and just jumping in? And were you a little bit scared at first, or what did that look like?
I was terrified, 100%. Um, I was terrified, but it was a good time because it was a big shift in my career. The company that I was working for wanted me to stay on board and do commercial real estate, and my heart just was not in that at all. And I'm pretty loyal in the sense that I knew if I went and got another job somewhere, I wouldn't take this opportunity and kind of take this leap. And my thought was, I'll try, and if I fail, I can get a job, right? I mean, I think I've done okay in the industry. I've made some connections. I could do something. And so I was absolutely terrified. I started the business by myself, don't have investors, nothing. I have, completely grassroots done this thing.
Wow.
Um, but I also think ignorance was bliss a little bit. Because in the beginning I was scared, but I wasn't quite sure what to be scared of, right?
Yep.
And then I think there was a time where, new things came up and clients change or client situations change or just ever changing situations, COVID, just all of those things that you experience for the first time. The fear that I had shifted constantly,
Hmm.
right? But now I feel like I'm in an okay place. Not that I'm not afraid anymore. I'm still, things could change on a dime, but I've just learned to kind of ebb and flow with it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I've surrounded myself with great friends who are in the industry, but who are also outside of the industry. So when I'm having those freak out moments, they'll listen to me. They'll remind me that, I've gotten through this before. But it's a pretty scary place to be. But I definitely encourage anybody that has ever considered it. I wouldn't change a thing about it. Definitely would encourage anybody who's considered it to, it takes a lot of guts to do it, but you can do it, and surround yourself with good people and a great support system. Because that's just sometimes you get in your own head and you need some people to kind of give you some perspective.
Yeah, you are not the first person who has said almost verbatim that
Yeah,
exact thing. We've had a couple suppliers come in and say very similar things, and luckily they get that from the women's summit and events like that where you just make these natural connections. You find people who are doing similar things, and then they become your trusted advisors when you're going to thinking about some of these hurdles that you're hitting and all of these kind of things that you're working through as a business, et cetera, right?
right,
So those
right.
connections are incredibly important. And I also think what you
Hugely
said about
important.
multifamily rings very true for most people, where it offers you this sort of safety net. Once you've kind of been in the industry for a while and you've made those connections, you do kind of feel like even if I boomerang back to somewhere that I've already worked, they'll take me back with arms wide open. And
Right,
I think it's a really unique business in that way or they might be a future client, right?
right.
A business that you've worked for might now be your client. So I think not burning bridges in this industry is a really key point to hit on for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Not burning bridges. And to your point, I mean, we've got folks who have started out as clients in one state and now they're in a completely different role in another organization on the other side of the country, right? And you could have never
Mhm.
guessed that that was going to happen. So you just never know where someone's going to end up or, what value they might be able to bring to you in their new experience, whether it's just a learning perspective or, anything at all. So keeping those relationships and looking for new relationships and new people to build those relationships with, I think is really important.
Absolutely. I'm glad it feels like the industry's steering away from that competitor vibe of, we can't be in the same room talking about these big
Right.
innovations that need to happen because we're competitors. We definitely are all about, an even playing field in our events, in our summits, in our council. We like to make sure that everybody feels welcome. We know what not to talk about that's proprietary and what we can talk about. But I think there's just things that the industry as a whole need to work on together to develop those best practices, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I definitely agree with you. I don't think we're quite all the way there yet, but I definitely think there's a shift in that mentality for sure.
yeah.
And it's nice to see. It's nice to see that more kind of collaborative approach versus competitive approach to
Mm.
things.
I think things are happening now that we are realizing we have no choice but to work together, all of
Yes.
us.
And
So.
that everybody will benefit, right? Like in the long run, you're going to benefit if you share some of that knowledge and experience and things of that nature for sure.
Absolutely. And so
Yeah.
tell me about, so I know you said you are very knowledgeable in the revenue management products that are available. Without recommending specific products, what are some
Mhm.
cool innovations that you've seen happening with those products that you're kind of excited about? I know we talked about amenities, which is really awesome. Either
Yep.
elaborate on that maybe a little or other interesting kind of innovative ways that these products are developing.
I think the amenities piece, to just circle back to that, again, they're hugely important when it comes to pricing and often overlooked. And depending on the platform, I think that is becoming more important. So there's a couple platforms out there that look at amenities in a different way. And I think being able to do that and shed some additional light, so much of it is about providing like decision support tools, right? Allowing you to see data in a way that you don't normally see through your property management system or some of your BI tools. And
Hmm.
so regardless of the product, the ones that are incorporating the amenity data, I think it's very important and it's fun to see that information and it's fun to be able to take actual contextual information to the client and say, hey, here are some red flags. Here are some things we probably want to look at and talk through. So good decision support stuff. Also, I think the products are becoming much more integrated in the sense that they're pulling in different components, traffic information, marketing information, and allowing you to see a roll up of all of that data. Again, just it enhances your ability to make decisions instead of feeling like your information is siloed. You've got to go to one system for this information, another system for that information. So that's very exciting to see as well. Goodness, I think just, it's obviously in revenue management, it's a little bit of a hot topic right now. But I think it's fun to see people in the industry who have maybe been skeptical about the product in the past, regardless of which platform, but then have utilized revenue management and have become true believers in the system because they start to understand how the platform, again, regardless of which one, how it works and just the benefits that you gain from it. So seeing some of the shift in the interest and the acceptance and the acknowledgement of revenue management has been fun as well.
I'm
Yeah.
curious on your behalf. So, do you ever kind of become a consultant on both sides where you're sort of consulting the revenue management systems on how they might be able to enhance their product suite and then also consulting people on basically how to use the product properly?
We have, I think it's a nice place for us to be too, because we've been in situations, years ago where revenue management systems started to integrate with a new property management system that it hadn't integrated with before. And because we have access to the client's property management system and we've got access to their revenue management system, we can have the conversation because obviously the provider that provides the revenue management product is not going to have access to their property management system. So we're able to get in there and kind of test and do things and keeping information, of course, proprietary information out of it, but allowing each of those systems to talk to each other and kind of bridge that gap a little bit. I think it's been hugely helpful for us to be able to do that. And I think we're in a unique position to do that because we're not associated with one specific revenue management platform that's out there. And so I think that gives us a unique kind of visibility, unique opportunity to do that. But yes, we often are consultants for the clients, consultants for the products, and then trying to marry those two things together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I asked that because I just put myself in your shoes and I was like, I bet she's always just flopping between the two. Can we do something like this? Okay, let's. So I think that's really positions like this are going to be incredibly relevant and needed, especially
Yes.
ones that specialize
Yes.
in certain aspects of our business, right? So I just think what you're doing is really exciting for people.
Yeah, I think because it's a lot of information to learn, regardless of the product that you use, and keep up to date with changes and all of those things. So being able to have someone that you kind of trust to do those things for you, have team members, and it's nice because our revenue managers work on multiple products, so we can have a client who uses product A and product B, and they can have one point of contact overseeing both of those products for them, instead of having two separate points of contact. So it's really nice to be able to do that and provide that service, make it a
Yeah.
little more easy to digest.
Yeah. I think it's smart. And when you're looking, if you're a business owner and you're looking at, like, to your point, hiring a whole team to do what you do, there's the turnover risk. There's the risk of them only knowing one software and maybe trying to get you to switch to just using that software because that's all
Mhm.
they know. So
Right.
having someone that's versed in everything and keeping a pulse of what's new, what's happening, what are these tools, and can make those recommendations, I think a lot of businesses will start going that direction instead of hiring that whole team on staff for
Yeah.
sure.
And it's nice too, we provide all of our own reports, so they get access to the reports that they would normally get from the revenue management platform, plus they get reports from us as well. And because we are smaller, we're a little more nimble, so we've been able to create some, specific reports that clients want to see in a specific manner. And just, again, it's the same data, but just presented it in a little bit different way. And I think that that's been really beneficial as well.
Great. Yeah, I love that. So again, we're super excited to have you
Yeah.
at the summit this year. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with about Revenue Edge, about making the choice to work with you?
I think revenue management and setting your rents is such a huge part of this business. I truly, from my heart of hearts, don't have a preference for what product. I think where we'll see people maybe kind of miss the boat a little bit is they won't get enough knowledge up front about what products actually really work well together.
Mm.
So make sure you do your homework on that ahead of time. And if you aren't sure what questions to ask, find someone who's been there and done that and they know what questions to ask. So really make sure the products are going to talk to each other in the way that you're being told they are, because that's huge. And then make sure that you have someone that's a resource that as you get rolling and as you get things going, that's going to be accessible to answer questions. If you need to shift gears, if something doesn't seem to be configured properly, just make sure you have someone that's going to be supportive at the beginning, because it's so key for buy-in that things, they're not always going to be 100% smooth, but that things are being addressed, people are being educated, all of that out of the gate. Because if you implement something and it's not working well, even if it's just a little tweak that's needed, you're going to really sacrifice buy-in from your teams, corporate, on-site, all of that. So just really having somebody that's going to hold your hand through the entire process and be there for you, I think is key, regardless of what product you use.
Wonderful. And is that
Yeah.
something that Revenue Edge will do? So if you get maybe a client success team from each of the products, and would you help kind of facilitate that conversation a little bit?
Yes, we'd
Great.
certainly facilitate the conversation. And if we have clients that reach out to us and say, hey, we're thinking about using, XYZ product, we'll talk about, okay, what property management system do you use? Here are some of the things you should ask. What CRM system do you use? And we'll kind of give them the foundation. And then if they want to do a demo with that product, we're happy to attend that demo as well so that we can ask questions on their behalf or give them ideas of questions they need to go back to. So once we sign with a client, we pretty much project management lead the whole thing. It's really not a draw on their team at all. We manage everything out of the gate, do all of the training for them. Typically, we'll go out and do training on site. That's kind of one of our hot buttons is we're not big WebEx trainers when it comes to revenue management. I think it's a little intimidating to do it that way. And so really just kind of holding their hand, making sure that all of the T's are crossed and I's are dotted out of the gate.
Yeah. I like the in-person training. I was in training for a long time and the virtuals were great, the self-led, the opt-in, all of that. It was there as a resource, but to be honest, nothing tops the in-person.
It
So,
really doesn't. And it's so funny because people have kind of given me grief about that over the years. They're like, it would be much easier to just do a WebEx and it'd be much less expensive. And I'm like,
hmm
yeah, but this is an investment in your asset. Like this product is going to set your rents. We're helping set your rents. So not only, whoops, I just lost the light. Not
You're okay.
Sorry, not only does it allow us to get out and see the product in the market and all of those things, having the FaceTime with the team, they're much more compelled to ask questions and to admit if they don't know something. I mean, it just puts
Mm,
such a different spin on it. And you start to build that goodwill out of the gate. And not to mention, a lot of times people don't pay attention when they're on Zoom. They've got other things that they're doing, right?
yeah.
So it's something we've stuck pretty true to. And I think it's benefited us in the long run to get to do that.
I mean, that's a huge part of your service alone. I think,
Yeah.
having the ability to visit people and do that hands-on training is, again, I'm going to recommend that hands down. I've tried every other form and
Yes.
just for adoption, for retention of information, that's just the way to do it. So
Yeah,
kudos to you
absolutely.
for that.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks.
And so how do people actually find you, your website, all of that information?
So the website is revedgesps.com. So revedgesps.com. So they can take a look there. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, although there's not a lot that we can really post there. But they can certainly find us on the website or on LinkedIn as well.
Fabulous. All right. And we'll see you at the Women's Summit this year. We're super
Yes,
excited to
super
have you there.
excited too. Can't wait
Great.
to be there and meet you in person. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thanks again to all of our listeners for tuning in to the Multifamily Women's Podcast. Do not forget to get your summit tickets at multifamilywomen.com today.